there's so many different elements to this. Everyone says, well, a state vote is a state vote, and that's it. I think very few people who look at this think this was just about Virginia and New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right. The one thing I would bring out, too, is it was a huge risk and a bad, obviously, tactic for McAuliffe to bring out the former President Barack Obama, his Stacey Abrams, who was the rock star of Georgia, to bring out Jill Biden, to ask Kamala Harris to cut a tape and go to 300
you think it hurt
churches.
him more than it helped him?
I think there's no doubt about it, because the people of Virginia wanted it to be about Virginia, and he's saying, well, you might not like me, but look at how popular my friends are. And in the end, now they all lose. They go down with McAuliffe, and actually President Obama worked in New Jersey, and man, that didn't help.
I think it's also about the issues. I mean, when you're down in Virginia, they are so worried about what's happening in their schools. I think this was a referendum on Biden and on the progressive movement and on CRT. I think that all these suburban parents are speaking out. They're getting involved for the first time. These are parents that never really were involved in school board issues, not involved in politics at all, and they might have voted one party or the other based on their families. But this was about the issues.
Right, and for the parents who lived through the pandemic, where the kids were at home, they looked over their shoulders for a year and they said, okay, wait a minute, what are you learning? And then they say, hey, what are you teaching them? And it's like, nah, we're not teaching them that. And it's like, I saw it with my own two eyes. According to the exit polling in Virginia, the #1 issue by a long ways was the economy, followed by coronavirus, and then, of course, education. When you look at how Terry McAuliffe nationalized it by bringing in all those Democratic all-stars, which clearly backfired, people wanted to talk about just the very local issues. For the most part, Glenn Youngkin kept Donald Trump at arm's length through the entire campaign. And what's interesting, when you look at, according to the Washington Post this morning, in the reddest part of Virginia, way out in southwest Virginia, about where Lawrence was yesterday, out in Roanoke, coal country, Glenn Youngkin actually got a higher percentage of the vote than Donald Trump did in 2020 because he made it about the issues of interest to people in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
And you know, a lot of the folks that we interviewed yesterday,
look at the map right there. The blue are the Terry McAuliffe counties, and up in the extreme north east, that is Northern Virginia. Those are the suburbs just outside of Washington, D.C., Fairfax and Loudoun County.
Well, you know, we also interviewed a lot of people that had migrated into our country, and they are citizens. They're able to vote here, but they said they are so fearful that for the direction of our country. They don't want our country to end up like theirs, the countries that they were fleeing from. And earlier on the show this morning, we interviewed two of those individuals, two parents in Loudoun County or in Fairfax, Virginia. One is She Van Fleet and the other is Azra Nomani. Listen to their stories.
As a person who never involved in political campaign, I worked so hard for Youngkin's campaign. Yesterday, I stood in cold rain for 9 hours handing out ballot. I did it because I believe in Youngkin. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
To me, this race between Youngkin and McAuliffe is a race between American ideal and Marxist ideology.
This was a referendum on parents and this entire ridiculous woke ideology that has swept into our school systems. I am an immigrant, Muslim, liberal Democrat, and I voted for Glenn Youngkin because Glenn Youngkin actually did something that so many politicians and policymakers have done, and that is honored parents.
Those are some of Ainsley's interview from earlier that talked about some of the impact. I think it's pretty cool, too. On Sunday, NBC had a poll, and they were probably outraged by the results, but they didn't run for them. It turns out the Republicans have a double-digit lead when it comes to who do you favor in terms of border security, no kidding, inflation to handle that, the economy, national security, and getting things done. Overwhelmingly double-digit advantage for Republicans, the party that just barely lost the Senate, closed the gap in the House, but lost the White House 1 year ago. So it's a pretty remarkable transformation. Right. But I also think to drill down on what Barack Obama said when he came. Instead of acknowledging that there were issues with schools and we should look at them, he called it a trumped-up culture war. When President Biden came, had a 16-minute speech, he mentioned Trump dozens of times. Nobody really thinks
24.
Donald Trump, had anything to do with it. And when McAuliffe said, instead of CRT. Here's how I would change it. He said it didn't exist. He also said parents have no role in education. The teachers' bases are too white. And then, of course, linking Trump and Charlottesville together fell flat. He never adjusted, which is astounding because this guy was a strategist getting other people elected. He couldn't handle a re-election for the most part because he won the first time in a state that he is supposed to have known so well.
Well, Terry McAuliffe was the establishment candidate. He's been an establishment candidate, establishment politician his entire career. And so with, quite understandably, the establishment media, when it was very clear the Republican in the fleece vest was going to win, well, did they like it? You be the judge.
When this election is over in Virginia, we will know, have we seen the emergence of the Delta variant of Trumpism? Same disease, but spreads a lot faster and can get a lot more places.
The exit polls showed that which was interesting, that the coronavirus or that the virus was a very
low
was not
salience.
importance to many of the voters
which
there.
Was fascinating.
It was education,
right,
which is code for white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race.
He flew an insurrection flag at his rallies. He played dumb about a Zoom rally. He did not really put much distance between himself and Donald Trump on the big lie or the deadly insurrection.
The announcement that Joe Biden will not be happy to hear, and it also shows how incredibly divided this country is.
So last night was a wake-up call. The Washington Post talked to a couple of current political operatives, and they say for Democrats, the historic Virginia turnout, which was over 3 million, which is bigger than it's ever been in a gubernatorial race. The historic voter turnout showed alarmingly high enthusiasm in conservative strongholds and a shift in the kind of suburban areas that powered the Democrats to win in 2018 and 2020. It shows the Republicans got the suburban independents to vote for the Republicans. And it's the independents who you got to get on your side. And suddenly, after it being blue for a long time, Virginia is a swing state.
I wonder how many teachers in Virginia supported Youngkin, because he was speaking out about higher wages for teachers, new facilities, more special
billion,
ed.
right?
Yes, school. He wants to build more of these charter schools. He says, I'm going to have 20 more charter schools.
Well, Terry McAuliffe said that Glenn Youngkin was going to fire like 40,000 teachers, which was not true.
But then he also said, as far as the military is concerned, he's going to cut taxes on retirement income for veterans, higher salaries for them, better equipment for them. He's going to ban CRT, opposes the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates.
Independents loved all that.
People, they did.
And he won't embarrass the nation by pulling out of Afghanistan the way he did. Just real quick, because I know Carly Shimka's got a temper and we don't toss to her right away. Other people upset. Joy Reid called the education issue code for white parents who don't want race taught in schools. And also Andrea Mitchell said Youngkin's textbook case of dishonest culture, as a dishonored culture warrior, got him the victory. Dishonest? It was honest. It was a parent speaking at a school board. That's unbelievable
to me.
Well,
and to Joy Reid's point, the parents that we talked to in Virginia, they're all for teaching history.
Sure.
But they just don't want their children, and they pulled out some of the books that actually showed us, they showed them to us, that said you basically need to apologize if you're a certain color.
And the other big news story, aside from the World Series, is the fact that in New Jersey, according to the AP, the Republican is still leading by 1,100 votes. And if he were to win, you know, people had said, if Glenn Youngkin wins, it's going to be an earthquake. I know a global tsunami if Jack Ciattarelli wins. And he is leading right now, but there are still a lot more votes.
Do we know
to
when
count.
that race will probably be called? Sometime today?
They're up to close to 90% of the precincts report.
Right. I think the three of us will decide when it's over.
We rely upon the Associated Press.
And I rely on Carly.
Well, thank you. But the mail-in vote in New Jersey is something to watch because it has to be postmarked by yesterday, but it can be brought into the polls until Friday. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
Really?
Yeah, it could drag out.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.